Welcome to Plain Civics. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joe Ulery.
And I'm Bobbi Fisher.
Our goal is to break down how government works so you can make the government work for you.
Today, we're going to wrap up our 13-part series on the civic virtues that Benjamin Franklin, one of our most significant founders, thought to be the most important. He thought these civic virtues, or qualities that help individuals become better people and contribute to a stronger society, mattered just as much as public action. The 13th and final civic virtue is humility. Franklin said, quote, "Imitate Jesus and Socrates," end quote. How have you shown humility by listening, learning, or recognizing others' strengths? Starting with the next episode, we will begin a new short segment based on another of our founders' civic virtues.
We're ready now, Bobbi, for episode 40.
I know. It's amazing.
So let's get to work.
And now our feature presentation.
So this is entitled, What is Civic Virtue and Why is it Important? We just spent 13 episodes telling you about the 13 civic virtues that Benjamin Franklin thought were the most important in helping individuals become better people and contribute to a better society. Things like humility, sincerity, order, moderation. These are important, but this episode is going to be largely about the civic virtues that people need to demonstrate to help maintain our democratic republic. These civic virtues refer to the habits or behavior that guide citizens to subordinate or lower their personal interests when necessary to contribute significantly to the common good of their community, state, and nation. Since ancient times, political philosophers have stressed the importance of civic virtue in the formation of and maintenance of good government. Ancient as well as modern political philosophers and thinkers have emphasized the importance of civic virtue in the character of citizens and the institutions of a constitutional democracy or democratic republic. They recognize that the political effectiveness of constitutionalism, such as with limited government and rule of law, is dependent on the character of the people. Remember, in a democracy, where the government is of, by, and for the people, the quality of constitutionalism can be no better than the character of the people. As I previously noted, civic virtue refers to the habits and actions that help a community and its democratic institutions function well. In the United States, it often involves balancing individual rights with responsibilities to others. Some of the things we can do individually that will help us to maintain our democratic republic include being informed and involved. We need to be informed when it comes to understanding how our government, economy, and society functions. We also need to know our nation's history, and we need to stay informed about the issues that exist within our own communities and states as well as nationally. In this day and age, staying informed is easier to do as far as accessing information because most of us have a cell phone in our hand or nearby, or we have a computer or a tablet device handy. We can use these devices to access news and all types of information in a matter of seconds. We don't have to wait for the daily newspaper to be dropped off on our front porch or for the 6 p.m. news to come on the TV. News and information is at our fingertips 24/7.
But there's a big but
Yeah.
that comes in here because
There is.
it's our phone's right there. You're right. My phone's right here.
Yeah.
And you Google it or whatever you do, and it's just like when a doctor says, you know, you might have this or that. It brings up worst case scenarios. It brings up bad information, stuff that's not even true. It brings up AI. So you really, really, really got to be diligent when you come to this.
Exactly.
But you got to make sure where you're getting your information, it's telling the truth and it's accurate.
We cannot stress that enough.
Right? No.
The problem isn't finding the news or information you're
Mhm.
looking for, but figuring out, as you said, if it's legitimate and credible. And there are ways to easily figure out the legitimacy of news and information sources. Despite the claim over the last few years of fake news, there really are legitimate news sources available. But we must make an effort to look for factual news and information and not just opinion to help us form our own opinions. Listening to the opinions of others may be helpful, but opinion should not be the main ingredient that you use to form your own opinions. However, it is important to listen and understand different perspectives, as this also supports thoughtful participation in democracy. If you need assistance in figuring out how to find reliable and factual information online, go back and listen to episode 6 from March 27th, 2025, where we detailed how to sort out news and information in the times we live in today. And I just put a link for something I posted after that episode that shows links for several different places that you can go online to help you figure out if a news site or information you found is legitimate and true.
So you can find that on our Facebook page, which is just plain civics.
Yeah. And you shouldn't have to, like, I had to scroll way down because we've posted a lot, but I put it back. I reposted it, so should come right up.
Nice.
And we also talked in that episode about like ethics of journalists and so forth. And so that would be a really good episode for people to go back and listen to who still aren't sure or maybe hadn't listened to that before.
And just to real quick put some current events in there, there are a couple really big stories that are happening. We're recording this in July of 2026. And right now there's a picture of the U.S. Senator, the Republican from Kentucky, Mitch McConnell. And there's been some AI stuff out there that we've seen. And they did release a picture of him in a hospital chair bed with his wife. But I think people are finally starting to learn, don't just take everything at face value, do some investigation. It's so easy to create fake pictures and fake posts. So I think we're learning that in real time. The recent death of Lindsey Graham, we talked about this before we started recording today. That wasn't on my radar. That really, really, truly shocked me. And at first I thought, this can't be true. But I went to a reliable website and found, oh my gosh, this is true. So there's just a couple current examples of things that were a little fuzzy when they came out, and I didn't know whether to believe them. So what I did was what you're telling me to do and go fact check.
Right. And back to the McConnell, because he hadn't made any public statements or anything, that was fodder for all kinds of memes and stuff that, like you said, made out of AI and, people inserting him in a picture of themselves. And yes, that can be humorous, and we need humor. And it shouldn't be offensive. What are we supposed to do when
there's silence?
His constituents had a right to know, but you do have to be careful. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Also, another bottom line is that you can find reliable and helpful information online, and you can find reliable and legitimate news sources. So don't let anyone tell you everything's fake news.
Right. Do not.
It's not. It may take some extra effort at first to learn how to do this and how to find legitimate sources. But once you do, you will find that it is much easier, and you'll know what sites to go to or what to read. Then you can keep up with local and national news, policies, issues, candidates, and everything you need to make you a better informed citizen.
And Bobbi, one thing I do, I keep hammering on this, but one thing I've trained my mind to do, and remember, I'm a full-time journalist. That is my job. But when my mom, everyone, my grandma, teachers growing up always said, police officers I've interviewed, when something seems off or too good to be true, I've trained myself that when I see something that's shocking, the very first thing I do is fact check, because I bet you if we went online right now, we could find 10 examples right now of things that are posted on Facebook, on Instagram, on Threads that just are not true. And then people start reposting, and then the fights start out and the comments break out, and it just snowballs into something that if you're being responsible about your posting on social media, then what you will do is fact check before you post anything.
This morning I was on Facebook and I saw this. It's a post supposedly for someone who may be an actual candidate in 2028, but they had and I don't think it's not the candidate's official site. It's someone else that created it in favor of this person. But they had posted today that the Supreme Court overnight had ruled on like 5 or 6 things, and they all went against President Trump. And I mean, it gave details and everything, and it was totally not true at all. It was clickbait.
And by the way, in recess, are they not? They've ended their term.
I believe so. And that was the first thing that I'm like, no, they didn't.
Yeah. See, so you've trained your mind to, when you read something that seems outrageous, fact check it.
But there were tons of comments. Now, a few recognized what we did, but there were some that were, taking it and running with it. And it's like,
yeah, that used to, honestly, to be honest with you, that would be my first instinct, 5, 6, 7 years ago is when I saw something like that. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to be the first to share this.
Right.
I want to be the very first to share this.
Right.
And then I realized that there is a very big danger with that because it's a wildfire. And all it does is stir up these mean, nasty comments, and it's like people can't sear and burn each other enough on the barbecue. And I know we're going to get into how we should treat each other as we continue this episode.
I love the way you just put that. It's so true. It's so true.
You can say the sky's blue, and immediately somebody comes out and is like, "No, the sky is green."
Okay, so that takes us to voting. Voting in all elections is another very important civic virtue, and that goes along with being an informed and involved citizen, which allows you to wisely cast your vote for the best candidate because you will have the tools to evaluate all of the candidates vying for a position and choose the one who will best advance the policies that you prefer. And I want to point out there that doesn't necessarily mean you'll always get those because they have to work with other people that may have different ideas, but at least you can feel like you selected the person that you think will represent your beliefs better. But voting should not be based solely on which political party you are loyal to, but should be based on choosing the candidate who, based on your research, will best work for the people and the common good. Remember, the founders of our nation did not want political parties because they were certain that factions or political parties would create too much division among the citizens. George Washington was so afraid that partisanship could lead to destruction of the Constitution and to the rule of, quote, ambitious and unprincipled men, end quote. This was so important to him that he felt compelled to repeat that warning twice in his 1796 farewell address. Voting is one of our most important responsibilities as a citizen because maintaining our democratic republic is up to us. Being informed and involved is also important for holding elected officials accountable for their actions and votes. Attending school board meetings, city council sessions, and town halls allow residents to learn about and influence local decisions. Many elected officials usually want to be reelected, and reelection should be earned. So keep up with your elected officials while they are in office and be aware of their actions.
Somebody might say, well, look, my kids graduated from school 5 years ago, so why do I need to go to a school board meeting? Well, you do need to go to a school board meeting, especially if you pay property taxes and taxes in Indiana, because schools are funded through those dollars, and you need to know your taxes could go up. And look, I'm generally all in for schools. I want our kids to have the best of the best of the best. And so generally for any kind of referendum or referenda that come up, I'm in favor of it. But that's how you find out. And that's how you get ahead of these projects. That doesn't just go for school board. It goes for all of the data centers that are going around too. Get involved early, and then it's coming, and you have time to speak up and form a group that can speak against or for a project.
And I was going to say too, we're not saying go to all of these different meetings, but in this day and age, like you can go to the city's website, the county's website, the school corporation, and you can generally, as long as everybody there's on the ball, find out what the next agenda is going to be and see, they're not going to talk about anything I'm interested in, so I don't need to go to this one. But there might be one down the line that you do see something like a data center or they want to raise your taxes or whatever. And you don't have to go to every one of them, but at least be aware of what they're discussing. Know that you can go if you find something relevant.
You can also, a lot of these now you can get online and watch at home from your recliner,
Right. Yeah,
and
I forgot
then
about
if
that.
something comes up, next time you show up in person and you
Right.
speak at the visitors' comments. Things have been made more convenient. We just need to tune in.
And they're not the most exciting things to go
Oh,
to,
trust
but
me. Trust me.
you need to be aware if nobody shows up, they're just rubber stamping whatever the people there want. So, and that's not the way it should be. And also, in addition to attending those, we've also talked about being involved might mean attending a meeting in person, or if an elected official is having like a town hall. If you can't do that, we've talked many times about the 5 Calls app, which you don't have to use, but it makes really easy calling a representative to either your state. The state legislators are on there, and ones that are in Congress, senators and representatives. Makes it so easy.
It
So,
even gives you a little, like you say, whether you're pro or con against something, and doesn't it help
right.
you out with here's a little
There's
simple couple sentences and you're in and out.
it gives you a sample script, and like I've taken those before and just tweaked it. Maybe there's something in it that I want to add or don't like or whatever, but at least you have like an outline of what
Right.
you might want to say. So things are much easier, and maybe it'll be difficult the first time, like
Yeah.
you're trying to do this or you're trying to figure out what's a good place to find information. But once you do,
Yeah.
then you just go, you just do it.
And it's like anything, the first time might be, you don't know what to expect. It could be a little intimidating, but for the people who think, oh gosh, I would never call a congressman's office, or never call my state legislator, once you do, you'll see how easy that app makes it. I mean, anybody, a fifth grader, could do it.
Like when I've done that, I have not yet gotten an actual person. So a lot of times you're just leaving
Right.
a voicemail, but somebody reads them because
Yes.
a lot of times you'll get a letter or an email back or something. So, it's landing.
We know there are a
But that-
lot of tools now out these days that make it easier for us to engage. So it's on us to do that. We really don't have an excuse not to.
So all of these things, staying informed, voting, contacting elected officials, holding elected officials accountable, and attending public meetings are all ways to be informed and involved as a citizen and for demonstrating civic virtues. Keep in mind that the flip side of this, being an uninformed citizen or voter, makes it easier to be misled by falsehoods, conspiracy theories, and to be manipulated by politicians who are pursuing their personal interests rather than those of the citizens they represent. Also, being an uninvolved citizen means allowing others to elect the people who are making laws and policies that affect you too. This creates a risk to democracy. Remember that democracy is not intended to be a spectator sport. It relies on we the people to maintain it. And I just want to remind people, we discussed voting in detail in episode 17 from August of last year, and again in episode 32 from March of this year. These episodes include details about the importance of voting and what happens when we don't vote, as well as some sad statistics about voting in the United States. Another thing you can do individually is to engage respectfully in discussions, listening to others, discussing disagreements civilly, and basing arguments on evidence contribute to healthy democratic debate. As we have said in previous episodes about political polarization and peaceful civil discourse, which were episodes 19 and 20 from the fall of last year, we must do better at being able to talk to each other civilly, especially about politics and other issues that we find important to us. Civility is essential to the workings of a democratic republic. We would not have just celebrated 250 years as a nation if the founding fathers and later elected officials had not been willing to have civil debate and discussion and been willing to compromise. This civil debate and discussion has been lacking at times, including recently, but we have always seemed to manage to overcome these dysfunctional times and return to a somewhat normal circumstance. What can we do to promote civility? We need to understand that disagreements are inevitable in a democracy, or any situation for that matter. We need to face these disagreements without the mindset that the disagreement is a contest that one has to win.
Yes.
We all form our beliefs and opinions based on information and experiences that we have learned and experienced, which may be different from another person's learned information and experiences. We need to be more open to listen to other people's views without interrupting or arguing. Hear them out and ask relevant questions about what they've said. Do this with a civil tone and without attacking them. Don't be condescending or angry. Don't attack them or characterize their argument or opinion as, quote, racist, sexist, or stupid, end quote. This type of behavior will only create humiliation and probably cause the other person to dig in even further, possibly become defensive.
Yeah.
I won't even say possibly. They probably will.
Bobbi, what you just said in the last 60 seconds, I think, is the most important message that we've ever shared on Plain Civics, the podcast. What you just said is a template for us to kind of reset. I've been guilty of it. I needed to hear that. We need to not think that we know everything there is to know. We need to be able to have these civil discussions, because once civility goes away and you start personally attacking somebody, that's the end.
Yeah. And we see the results of that in our national politics, and especially since we've done these podcasts and we've talked about civility and stuff before. I know I catch myself wanting to reply to somebody. Maybe they put something on Facebook that I know is patently false, factually. And I typed the whole thing out, and then before I send it, I'm like, I need to know where they're coming from. I'm not going to put this on here because I know it's, they don't know where I'm coming from. I don't know where, and I've deleted it. And I just did that a couple days ago because it's like, that's just going to make them mad. It makes me feel good, but maybe they have
something else going on in their life. We never know what anybody's carrying that day. And you're right. You know what? Think twice before you hit that send button, and don't fan flames. Some people or bots that are out there that are designed to be argumentative, it's just going to double down and double down and double down. So read the situation before you engage. Some people legitimately want to know and are asking, but some people are just on there to stir the pot.
And that kind of goes along with my next thing. A politically charged conversation can be an opportunity to learn and even change one's mind. Oh my gosh, which is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and wisdom. 20th century British economist John Maynard Keynes once said, quote, when the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do? Sit? End quote. To stand firm after receiving new, compelling evidence is just being stubborn and keeping you and the other person from reaching common ground. It might help to hone this way of thinking about civility by watching, reading, or listening to news or opinion shows or articles of people with views that are different from yours, where you can get a better idea of what is behind their views. Or have coffee with someone you know who has opposing views and have a conversation where you practice these techniques. I would suggest in person doing that rather than texting or Facebook, because we lose a lot when we can't hear a tone of voice.
Absolutely.
Can't see body language.
I agree.
And you can take things completely wrong when it's just text typed, in a Facebook post or on your phone.
We as humans are designed to interact face to face. Technology has sort of taken that away from us, especially during COVID. I was
just thinking the same thing.
We need to hone our skills of in-person, face-to-face conversations and reconnect with our neighbors and other people.
Civility doesn't mean avoiding conversation or debate because it might make you uncomfortable or you're afraid it might make you think or change your opinion. That's not the purpose of it. And if you do hear something that is compelling, you should be willing to change your opinion.
We've talked about that so many times. I have greater respect for somebody that says new information has come along, or I've spoken with enough people now that I have decided that the room, the vibe, the country has changed. And so I'm going to evolve. And I think we need to evolve We need to evolve to save
we
our
must.
country. Yes. All right, Bobbi, let's put a pin in that. That's definitely a conversation we're going to have a lot more to say about. But right now, it's time for a history lesson.
Don't know much about history.
This is our Don't Know Much About History segment. He was born on March 16th, 1751 at Belle Grove Plantation in Port Conway, Virginia, and was raised on his family's estate, Montpelier. He was the eldest of 12 children and inherited the family's plantation after his father's death. As a young man, he studied Latin, Greek, mathematics, philosophy, history, and government. In 1769, he entered the College of New Jersey, which is now Princeton University, where he completed an accelerated course of study and developed a lifelong interest in political philosophy. He later studied law independently, though he never practiced it extensively. He was elected to the Virginia Convention in 1776 and soon became an influential voice in shaping the new state government. During the 1780s, he served in the Continental Congress and played a leading role in calling for a stronger national government. At the Constitutional Convention in 1787, he was instrumental in drafting and promoting the United States Constitution, earning the title Father of the Constitution. He also worked closely with others to write the Federalist Papers, which helped ensure the Constitution's ratification, and he later introduced the Bill of Rights in the first Congress. He served as Secretary of State under President Thomas Jefferson before being elected the fourth President of the United States, serving 2 terms, which included during the War of 1812. He died on June 28, 1836, at his beloved Montpelier estate in Virginia. I am, of course, talking about James Madison.
All right, so that was a good history lesson for us today. Let's jump back into our discussion today for episode 40.
Another important civic virtue is serving on a jury if called upon to do so. Jury service is a constitutional responsibility that helps ensure fair trials. And by responsibility, I mean if you're called, it's really not something you're supposed to be allowed to just blow off.
Some judges get really, really upset when you don't do that. Have you ever had the opportunity to serve?
I was called last year, and then before they ever got to me, they already had their 13 or 14, however many they choose.
I've never once been called.
I was called once for federal jury duty in South Bend. Like I had to call like the Sunday night before.
Yeah.
And it had gotten canceled or something. So I never got to do that one. So we all have a stake in the well-being of our society and our fellow citizens. Everyone deserves justice and fairness. If you or someone you care about were involved in a trial, you would likely want a thoughtful and impartial jury of peers deciding the case. Jurors carefully examine the evidence and decide the facts of the case, helping prevent unfair or unjust outcomes. Jurors come from different backgrounds and experiences, helping courts make balanced and unbiased decisions. Jury service is one of the few ways people can directly take part in the judicial branch of government. The U.S. Constitution guarantees that many criminal and civil cases will be decided by a jury of ordinary citizens rather than by the government alone. Just as citizens vote, pay taxes, and follow laws, serving on a jury is a responsibility that helps society function. In short, serving on a jury is important because it protects individual rights, strengthens democracy, and helps ensure that justice is decided fairly by members of the community rather than by a single person or the government. Another important civic virtue is paying your taxes honestly and faithfully. Taxes fund public goods and services such as roads, schools, emergency services, and national defense, just to name a few.
Yes.
No one likes paying taxes, but many of the elements of life that we enjoy are built and maintained by our government for us to make use of. So by paying our taxes, we help maintain these vital services that make our lives better. I think this ties into another important civic virtue, which is protecting our public resources. These are also things that our tax money helps to fund and maintain. This means caring for parks, public buildings, and shared spaces, and practicing environmental stewardship. This benefits the broader community. This means not tearing up equipment in a public space or building. It means picking up trash, whether it's yours or someone else's. Volunteering for projects like cleaning the riverbanks or parks or sprucing them up. Many communities often have funding cuts or have a shortage of employees and can't keep up with maintenance, so having community volunteers is very helpful and allows for continued use of the public spaces. It is also another way to demonstrate civic virtue. Volunteering in the community is another important civic virtue. There are many organizations that can use and are often begging for volunteers. Some examples are helping at food banks or soup kitchens, helping in the schools, the parks, libraries, schools, other nonprofit organizations. Volunteers strengthen local communities. Similarly, everyday acts like mentoring young people, assisting elderly neighbors, or participating in neighborhood associations foster trust and cooperation. These actions help neighbors and build community. Exhibiting these types of civic virtue reflect our own self-interest and is for our own sake. And that's because there may be a time when we might need this type of assistance, and we also make use of these parks and libraries and other services that might benefit from our volunteering. We have an obligation to take care of others as it is critical for democratic society. Think common good.
Yeah, I'm thinking that with all the questions going around about elections and election integrity and all those things, well, we can volunteer to help with the elections in our communities, and then it's our neighbors and other people we know at a local level that are making sure election laws are followed and that we can trust election results. So that's just one other example of where we can get involved in this.
And that needs to remain bipartisan like that.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know they were talking the other day, one of the things this administration wants to do is make it, since they have control of Congress and the presidency, is to only have Republicans in charge of counting the ballots and overseeing elections. And that just goes against everything. You know, that has to remain.
Fair is fair. Like if you're, regardless, let's say you're a Democrat, I want a Republican there watching to make sure we're doing it right. Or if, you know, I'm the opposite, I want that other party. And generally the way things are set up, there's an election board in each county, and there's a member from each party and an attorney in that room to make sure that our votes are counted fairly.
All right. An extremely important civic virtue is to obey laws, whether we agree with or like them. If too many citizens fail to obey laws, it could lead our society to collapse into anarchy. If there is a law or laws we don't agree with, then we need to work peacefully to change those viewed as wrong or unjust. Citizens can advocate for legal reforms through voting, organizing, peaceful protest, petitions, and the courts. Sometimes when peaceful protest hasn't caused change fast enough, some have advocated and practiced what is known as civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is the peaceful, intentional refusal to obey a law or government policy that a person believes is unjust. People who practice civil disobedience break the law without using violence to draw attention to an issue and encourage change. Participants are often willing to accept the legal consequences of their actions to show the strength of their beliefs. The goal is to bring about social or political change. Civil disobedience is what Rosa Parks was practicing when she refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus, as well as those who participated in peaceful sit-ins at businesses that practiced segregation during the civil rights movement. I could have mentioned numerous different acts of civil disobedience. Because we have all of these powerful means to pursue change, we should never resort to violence as a means to change something we don't like. Using nonviolent means to seek change is what sets our democratic republic apart from authoritarianism. Peaceful demonstrations, advocacy campaigns, and community organizing are established ways to express views and seek change. And they are also considered civic virtues because they are a means for people to participate constructively in civic life. Hopefully, listeners have a better idea of what characterizes civic virtue in our nation. So how do citizens learn these civic virtues virtues. One way to learn these civic virtues is by having people model them. Modeling would hopefully be done by parents and other relatives, but probably the best and most consistent way to learn these virtues is over the course of a child's education. But for someone who did not receive much civic education or doesn't remember much of it, there are many free educational websites and resources that can be used. So if you've just forgotten or you don't feel like you received that, it's never too old to learn.
Brush
and
up.
There are lots
That's
of
right.
sources there to do that, and brush up on history. Civics education should be required in every school system in the United States, and it should be taught and built upon throughout a child's education experience. As we have discussed numerous times in previous podcast episodes, teaching children to be good citizens and teaching them civic virtues will enable us to carry on the great American experiment in self-government. And remember, this is when Horace Mann came up with the idea for public education, that was the centerpiece of it. That was the purpose of public education, was to teach students to be good citizens. Because without that, as we said earlier, our nation is doomed to be over. So civics education instructs students why laws exist, how they protect people's rights, and why following laws is important for maintaining order and justice. It helps students understand that people may have different beliefs, cultures, and opinions. Learning to respect those differences strengthens democracy and encourages peaceful cooperation. Students also learn how the federal, state, and local governments work, what the Constitution says, and what rights and responsibilities citizens have. This knowledge helps people participate wisely in democracy. In addition to teaching about rights, civics education reminds citizens of their responsibilities, such as voting, serving on a jury if called, paying taxes, obeying laws, and staying informed about public issues. Students learn how elections work and why it is important to research candidates and issues before voting. Informed voters help elect leaders who represent the public's interests. Civics classes encourage students to examine evidence, evaluate different viewpoints, and discuss important issues respectfully. These skills help citizens make thoughtful decisions instead of relying on rumors or misinformation. In addition, civics education reminds citizens of their responsibilities, such as voting, serving on a jury, paying taxes, and all of those things that we mentioned before. And I can't stress that enough. It needs to start early.
Yep.
Like in elementary school, start on learning about laws and rules and so forth, and build on that. And, the learning how to carry on a civil discussion, that might be something more towards middle or high school, but this should all be building blocks built upon through and practiced through the whole school, not just a little snippet in 8th grade and a one semester course in high school, as it is in Indiana for the most part. Civics education promotes civic virtue by preparing citizens to participate responsibly in democracy. It helps people understand their government, respect the rights of others, make informed decisions, contribute to their communities, and fulfill their civic duties. These qualities strengthen American democracy and help ensure that government reflects the will and the interests of the people, and hopefully helps us go on for at least another 250 years.
Absolutely. I would love to know that's going to happen.
Right.
So where are we headed?
Our next episode will be our third installment of Say What?
Love those.
Where we talk about 5 common misconceptions about various topics related to civics.
It is time for the pop quiz.
Bueller.
Last episode's question was, what is the capital of your state? And I added or country because we do have some listeners that are not in the United States. Mm-hmm. So the answers obviously are going to vary. If you live in Indiana, hopefully you know that our capital is Indianapolis. I'm not going to sit here and list all 50 and however many countries. Yeah. But if you're not sure, maybe you've moved somewhere recently, make sure that you know that. That's kind of an important thing that a resident of a state or a country should know.
So next question.
Our question for this time, and this one does have an answer that we can give, but I'm not going to tell it today. What are the 2 major political parties in the United States? And remember, these are all questions that if you were taking the naturalization test, that you might be asked. You're not asked all 100 of the possibilities, but you don't know ahead of time what you're going to be asked. So these are all things that future citizens and current citizens should know.
Yeah, and I feel like the folks that go through that program end up knowing more than the average person on the street that was born here.
I totally agree, because they have to study all of 100 of those items because, again, they don't know what they're going to be asked.
And I don't know, Bobbi. I know there was a time that I could do it, but man, I am not sure I could sit here and name the capitals of all 50 states. And that's embarrassing to admit out loud. I could probably get over 40, but I don't know if I could round out to 50, so maybe that's a challenge for some of us to do. Well, this was a great episode. I really appreciate your doing this. This kind of falls in line of what we're going to be doing at the Kokomo Howard County Library later this fall, where we're going to be doing a class and talking about how to be a better citizen. So this was sort of, I think, a template for that, and it has a lot of information in it that sometimes doing some self-reflecting on ourselves and having some self-awareness on ourselves is exactly what the doctor ordered. And I'm pointing the finger at myself when I say that. So a lot of the things that you said today are things that are not only true, but they're things that we need to actively pursue. You can contact us through our Gmail account. It's Plain Civics Podcast at Gmail. And again, that Facebook account is just type into search in Facebook Plain Civics. So Bobbi, thank you for putting the episode together. I really appreciate that. It was a good one for all of us to hear. That's it for this episode of Plain Civics, breaking down the basics, no politics, just facts. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
This is Plain Civics. Join us for the journey as we break down the basics of how government works so you can make the government work for you.